Welcome to Season 2 of an intimate conversation with women of color. This podcast is a platform for women of color to use our voices. As women of color, we don't always have a platform to use our voices. This podcast is such a platform for women of color, LGBTQ+, and allies. I am your host, Deneen L. Garrett. Happy New Year and welcome to Season 2 of an intimate conversation with women of color. We are kicking off 2021 with Joy M. Hutton. Joy is from Chicago, residing in Houston, H-Town. Joy is a techpreneur. She is a management professional as well as a restaurateur, and so much more. Joy right now is on season 3 of OWN TV's Ready to Love, and that's what today's conversation is about. What are you ready to? So get ready for today's episode, but before, just make sure you listen to the episodes, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and share. I am your host, Deneen L. Garrett. Now sit back or keep it moving and get ready for today's episode. Welcome to an intimate conversation with women of color. How are you today?
I am doing well. How are you?
I am wonderful and so happy to talk to you.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I want to introduce you to our listeners. So today's guest is Joy M. Hutton. She is a management consultant, corporate trainer, techpreneur, the restaurant girl, professional speaker, TV personality, podcast host, MBA candidate at Duke University, and a favorite on Ready to Love, a dating program on OWN TV. There is so much more to Joy. I have her bio, which will be included in the show notes. But Joy, tell us more about you.
Yeah, so I am originally from Chicago, but I live in Houston, and I've been there for 9 years. I think you mentioned an entrepreneur, a two-time entrepreneur. I have a management consulting firm and called Joy of Consulting, and a beauty startup called On the Go GLAM. And it's like Uber for beauty. Someone
Oh,
comes to you
nice.
and does your hair, makeup, and nails. And, yeah. So that is, and of course, I'm single, hence why I went on the show. And I'm sure there's more that we'll talk about, so I won't, run down my whole history.
Right, absolutely. So we're both
Yeah.
Midwestern girls. I'm actually
Yes.
from the D and I'm living in Detroit. So
Okay.
we have that
Okay.
in common. And I will
Yeah.
tell you, so before COVID shut it down, I was in Houston. I had a wonderful time. I went to the Breakfast Club. The food is good. And
Mm-hmm.
they had this beautiful art on the wall. And I ended up purchasing a piece from the artist and have purchased like 4 more pieces from her. So Linda Simeon Kelly, not sure if you've seen her art, but she has some wonderful pieces. But the point is, I had a great time in Houston.
Yeah.
And I
Okay,
brought some of
good.
Houston home with me.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's the way to go right there.
Right, right. So,
Yeah.
Joy, we both mentioned the show. So, Ready to Love is a show on OWN, and that's how I was, first introduced to you. And as I was telling you before, I do enjoy the show, and I definitely enjoy you on the show. You bring a lot
Thank
to it.
you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome. So, you're using your voice in multiple ways, as we both just, talked about. Why is it important for women of color to have a platform to use their voices?
I think we have so many stigmas and so many things out there about Black women. We're the angry Black woman. We're not professional. We're ratchet. We're this, we're that. So many things out there about us. And, I think when you do have a platform, it's important to use that for good. And it's so interesting because people are so shocked when they see me on the show because they're like, oh, she's actually classy and she's not, she's not ratchet. I can turn up a little bit, but it's not, I think you can do things with class. You you control your narrative to a certain extent when you go on these shows. If someone says do something, you don't always have to do it. And, at the end of the day, for me, it was about being myself. But I think when people have an opportunity to use their voice, it should be used for good, because you never know how you're going to impact someone. And, I'm divorced and I'm an entrepreneur. So there are a lot of different ways I could definitely use my voice.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. As far, on the show, you definitely exude class and still popular, right? If I'm not mistaken, you're probably the most popular.
Am I?
Yeah. Well, I would say definitely, on the show, you
Mm-hmm.
definitely are. You're definitely a favorite.
Yeah. Well, that's
What we
good.
see. Yeah, you are. And then, like you said, the class and how you communicate and problem solve, you didn't get into any drama with anyone. At least I haven't seen
Right.
it,
No, that's not me at all.
right. And so the point with that is just to say that everything you've said, we can be all of that and still,
Absolutely. Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? We can
Absolutely.
be all of that and still, and change the narrative, create the story that we want, what we want people to know and see about us, communicate that, demonstrate that.
Right. Absolutely.
So, which leads into, again, how you're using your voice in so many different ways as an entrepreneur, on the show, on your podcast. How are you using your voice specifically for women of color?
So I am involved with a number of initiatives that support women of color, people of color, entrepreneurs in particular. I've worked with organizations such as Walker's Legacy and Black Girl Ventures, and most recently, I was hired as a Google digital coach. And what that means is that I am offering free workshops through Google for Black and Latino-owned businesses to learn digital skills. And these are free resources that they can use to scale their businesses online. And, a lot of the times, especially as entrepreneur and people of color, women of color, even more so, because I'm in the tech industry and we are at the bottom of the barrel as Black
Right.
women. And in terms of getting funding, we don't have access to the resources that our white counterparts have. And so for me, like, especially within the past 4 years, I would say even since I became an entrepreneur, I have just been drawn to organizations that support those initiatives, supporting and uplifting Black businesses and first, but women of color, people of color, and just giving back any way that I can, because I had mentors along the way. I had people that poured into me. And so it is, my mission, I call it one of my callings, really, to help people that look like me.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. And as a matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned mentors, because January is National Mentoring Month. So, let's go ahead and just jump into it. Share
Yeah.
your best mentoring moment as a mentee, mentor, and or both.
One of my favorite people in life is this woman that I worked for years ago. Her name is Jacqueline Meyer, and she was a teacher, not in her profession, but in terms of teaching me how to grow, teaching me how to push for more. And, she would just tell me, you go into your job looking for the next opportunity. You don't want to limit yourself to the things that are out there for you. And, she taught me so much. She was one of my favorite bosses. And, we still talk to this day. And that was over 10 years ago. But she poured into me and she invested in me, and she always pushed me to think outside of the box. And, that's kind of first where I learned about training and development and professional development. And it's so funny because I ended up coming back around to that when I became an entrepreneur. So it's like a lot of the things that she taught me were definitely ingrained in everything that I did. So, but, I do the same thing when I meet people and with people that work with me, any consultants or interns or staff. I encourage them to grow within the roles that they have. And because someone did that for me. Now, I didn't always have the best bosses, but she was my favorite. So, but I try to take that same approach when I work with people.
Yeah, and so what I love that you said is that she taught you and she was not a teacher. At least
Right.
that was not her profession, right?
Exactly.
And so what that indicates and improves is that we are impacting people,
Yes.
And we don't even know it sometimes.
Right.
And so why it's important, as you said earlier, for us to, give a great example, be a great
Absolutely.
example to another person, invest in them, you know, pay it forward, pull them along, push them along.
Right.
So I love that you're doing all of that. And you're right. You're in an industry where Black women definitely are at the bottom. And unfortunately, we find ourselves there in a lot of instances. Although I believe we're the growing uh, in number of
Yes, we
entrepreneurs,
are the fastest growing. Mm-hmm.
right? And we have those degrees, most educated. So we're actually, although society puts us in that box,
Mm-hmm.
we don't stay there.
Exactly. Right. We are
We do not
survivors.
stay
We are
there.
survivors,
we are,
you know.
we're survivors and thrivers.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
you said something, Deneen, where we are the ones that are starting these businesses. However, we are the ones that also are making the least amount of money.
Yeah.
And that is, again, that goes back to access to resources, which is what's so important about, what I do and what I try to do is getting those resources to as many people as possible. I mean, what you can't beat free Google workshops,
Right.
and so it's like free, anything that's free as an entrepreneur, that's valuable, so I think it's just critical because some people just don't know where to start. And,
Yeah.
they say the phrase is you don't know what you don't know. And it's so true. You can go to Google, but what are you searching for? So,
Right. Exactly. Right.
right. So to have, someone give you a baseline, or guidelines to where to start is so helpful because we don't always have that. Everybody doesn't grow up with entrepreneurs in their family, but we know we want to do something with this idea that we had at our kitchen table, but you got to make sure you invest in running the business the right way.
Yes, absolutely. And, invest in your business, invest in yourself,
Yes.
invest in other people, and be an example for other people because there are, some women of color, Black women who
Mm-hmm.
don't recognize the power of their voice, right? So they don't know that they have power to be an entrepreneur or power to speak on a platform. There's a lot that some don't know. What would you tell them? Like, what would you like to tell women to encourage them to use their voices?
I think it's not it's not hurting you if you use your voice, right? What are you losing if you are not if you do use your voice? What are you actually losing? Because for me, I think about, who can I help? Because
Mm-hmm.
we watch TV. We have somebody that we look up to, and that person had to take the step to be vulnerable so we can do the same thing. And I'm not a person that can be easily vulnerable, it was so shocking for my family and friends when I went on the show because I'm a very private person. But I was like, you know what? I said last year that I would in 2018 or no, in 2019 before coming into 2020, I said I am going to vow to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And so,
Mm-hmm.
because you never know, anytime I've done a talk or spoken somewhere, people are like, oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad. And so that to me says there are stories that we have to tell. Why are we keeping them to ourselves? And obviously there are some things that, you want to keep private. But if you know that your story can help somebody, why not? What is the risk? And so for me, like they say, when you go on TV, just don't say what you don't want people to know. And I did exactly
Right.
that. Y'all need to know all my
Exactly.
business now.
Right.
I give you a little peek, but you're not going to know all my business, And so So yeah, I just think it's okay. You know, I say to those people, it's okay to be vulnerable, because think about who you can help, who you can impact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And, and it's interesting that talked about vulnerability, because that's something that I didn't realize I was dealing with before I launched my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm like, oh, I want to do it, but I was hesitant. And then when I realized it was the fear of being vulnerable, I'm like, oh, okay, I know what it
Right.
is. And I'm going to go ahead and work through it anyway. And so here we are. You had a beautiful moment on the show. It was a conversation between you and
Mm-hmm.
Edwin, and you all had kind of talked about it before, but that one scene where, you circle back around to him seeking help,
Right. Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
PTSD, mental, that was such a beautiful
Yeah.
moment. And again, it exemplifies everything that you're talking
Right.
about, because he was interested in
Mm-hmm.
you, as a love interest. And he still was able, when he realized that you didn't feel that same exact way for him at that
Mm-hmm.
moment, but he respected what you said to him,
Right.
and what could result, because we don't know, I don't know, what has happened since
Right.
then, but
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful friendship could have resulted from that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's those conversations, unfortunately, those are hard conversations to have. However, you don't know how it will impact the other person. And even just from that one episode, I've had so many people reach out to me and say, the times that you talked about therapy, it has inspired me to go and seek therapy, or inspire
Yeah.
me to have these hard conversations with loved ones, because that's what got me through, and that's what's getting me through. I
Mm.
went through a very unpleasant divorce. And so, I mean, I had many a nights where I was rolling on the floor and crying, and, but therapy got me through. And even now, I think it's just 2020 in itself has just been a tough year. I mean, I lost my sister in September doing a reality show, put myself out there. So you need some maintenance,
Yes,
And
absolutely. And you know what?
oh,
Oh,
I was just
sorry.
going to say, people think it's a bad thing to go to therapy, but it's not always a bad thing. It might just be some personal upkeep just to keep you balanced, because it's crazy out here.
Oh, it is. And the thing about it is that we go through therapy when we're talking to our girlfriends.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they're just not
Right.
professionals.
Exactly. We're all
They just, you know what
therapists.
I'm saying? Like, they just don't have that degree. They don't have that
Hmm.
training to help you through, in those moments when you really need that
Right.
professional
Hmm.
help, so no, definitely. Same here. So I lost my sister in October.
Hmm. Wow.
And yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I said, and I'm the type of person that have put
Yes.
compartmentalize, right?
Hmm.
So I'm able to, let me just put this over here and leave it there and keep it moving. But
Right.
I didn't want to do that this
Yeah.
time. And so someone had recommended, talking to a grief
Hmm.
counselor, which I did. And I love that, because we talked. She was able to, help me through, offer, assistance for another family
Hmm.
member,
Hmm.
and it was so helpful. And then it expanded beyond that,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
So it wasn't just about that. It was also just about other things, right? So people probably think that you go for one thing and that's the only thing, and that's it. But no, there's so many things that are going on in your life that
Yeah.
sometimes you need that
Absolutely.
that guidance and that direction. And so be open to it,
Hmm.
right? Definitely be open to it.
Exactly.
So she wrote a book, Dreams Deferred. And so I've incorporated that into the podcast by asking, if there was ever a time that you deferred a dream
Mm.
and what you did about
Hmm.
it.
Wow. I've deferred many dreams. And, when I was married, put my I put my spouse first in terms of what he wanted to do. And we would talk about different things I was interested in, but, they always got put on the back burner. And one of those things is a wine bar. I had talked about
Mm,
opening a wine bar. I am super passionate about wine. And, my close friends who know me, they are like, when are you going to open this wine bar? And
Right.
so it is a dream deferred, but it is not going to be a dream that dies. And so that is something that I still want to do in the next few years, and I'm going to do it. So, but a lot of the times when you are a giver, you give and you give and you give, and then you have nothing left for yourself. And so I'm all about pouring into people. I do it on a daily basis. I mean, with all the things that I'm involved in, I like to give back. I like to pour into people. However, you have to set boundaries for yourself. You have to set boundaries for your time, your energy. And I'm still a work in progress on that because I don't like telling people no all the time because I'm like, oh, it's only going to take me 5 minutes. Oh, it's only going to take me an hour. But if I add up all that time, those are some billable
Right.
hours. So I think, but yeah, that's one of the things that I've wanted to do. And, timing is everything, right? And I am all about doing things according to God's plan. And there's a reason why I don't have that wine bar right now. I mean, it's a pandemic, so that thing would be closed.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
so it's the reason why things happen the way
Yes.
they do. However, what my marriage taught me was not to lose sight of what Joy wants, not lose sight of myself in someone else. We always do that. I just watched this movie yesterday called Sylvie, and her husband he was like, you can just quit your job. What? She's been wanting to do this for years, and you're going to tell her just up and quit her job because you want to do something? And so that's not okay. It's supposed to be a partnership. It's supposed to be a team. Like, we're building this empire together. And so I've just had to realize, and I have realized in the past, like, what Joy wants, Joy should do. So
Absolutely.
and not sacrifice that for anyone or anything. And but I have to constantly remind myself of that because I still am like, oh, I'm going to do this for my friend, and then I'm exhausted the next day. And I have to take days to recoup my energy because I'm an introvert, even though people don't believe it, but I
Yes.
am. I don't really like people like that.
Oh. Listen, I feel you. Same here. I am an introvert. I love my couch. I love
Yes.
TV.
You know, I like interacting
Hmm.
with people on my terms. I don't like to be forced into
Yes.
situations. And so that was another reason why I had so much anxiety going into Ready to Love because I'm like, oh my God, I don't know these people, and I got to see these people
Yeah.
every day. But it again, I said I would be comfortable being uncomfortable. And boy, I was definitely uncomfortable. But I was like, I'm just going to go in here and be myself. And that's all I can do.
So I love
Mm-hmm.
that, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. So what would you say is your biggest takeaway from that experience then with the
You
discomfort?
know, I think that it makes me, I don't know, because I think when I went through my divorce, there was definitely a moment or moments where I lost confidence in myself because I I saw it as a failure, and I don't think anybody does well with failure, but I saw it as a failure because I'm like, man, I thought this was going to be forever, and it wasn't. And so, but I just had to realize, like, we just weren't aligned on a lot of things, and it's not my fault, it's not his fault. We just weren't meant to be. We just weren't a good fit,
Yeah.
and he will be right for someone, and I will too. So one of the things I said, I went through a range of emotions when I went through the divorce, but one of the things I tell people, I said, I will never regret being married to him because, he was what I needed at that time. But you have to realize and take away things from any traumas or whatever painful situations that you might have gone through. And that's what I did. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to see what this light at the end of the tunnel was because I thought I would be married and have 3 babies by now, but that's okay. So God has a plan. I just keep telling myself God has a plan, even though I have some harsh conversations with God too. I'll be like, really? Okay, God.
Right.
Send me one more clown and we're gonna have a conversation. So so, but I guess I see it as growth. I don't see it, it is uncomfortable, but I see it as an opportunity for growth and stretching myself.
Yes.
And I'm taking each lesson as they come, because it's been a lot of lessons. And I told God that just probably a few weeks ago, I think I'm good. I'm good. I don't want peace. I don't want wisdom. I don't want strength. I don't want none of it, because clearly when I pray for these things, you're taking me through all the trials and tribulations.
Right.
So I'm good.
You asked for it. I
Exactly. I
had
was
to
like,
get you there.
I don't want anything. I'm just grateful for waking up this morning. That's it. So I said, God, I don't want anything
Well,
else.
amen
Yes.
to that.
I'm like, I'm good.
Definitely
Yeah.
amen to that.
Yeah.
You're
It's like, you don't have to
good.
worry about me asking
I
for
know.
nothing else.
Yeah. And for me, so that goes to that whole thing, be
Yes.
ready. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? When you ask for
Oh,
something, be ready
yeah.
to get it. So if you're not ready,
Don't
then don't
ask
ask
at
for it.
all. I said, I'm good.
Right?
Whatever is in your divine will, I'm good. All right. So,
Yes, that part. I actually had to modify my prayer as well, to, instead of asking for what I wanted, which is to share my life with somebody, I said, make me open,
mm-hmm.
help me with that
Right.
piece, which, takes us to, as we wrap up, what are you ready for in 2021? Hey, some of you may be like me. I was in search of the perfect platform for my podcast and stumbled across Anchor by listening to my sister's podcast. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me tell you more about it. First of all, it's free. Yes, free. They have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you. So you don't have to deal with getting connected to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more, because Anchor does it for you. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Anchor has everything you need to make a podcast in one place. How convenient. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Trust me, you will not be sorry.
2020 has been just extreme highs, but it's also been extreme lows for me. So I really am just honestly afraid to even think about the next year. I'm optimistic, but at the same time, losing my sister was a big thing for me, because we were extremely close. It was unexpected, and it hit me really hard, and it still is. I'm still trying to process it. And so it feels like very much a part of me is missing, but you have to continue every day. And I tell people, I'm like, grief is not something that is going to go away. It doesn't go away. You just learn to manage the day to day. And that's exactly what I'm doing. But some days are harder than others. So 2021, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just want to be happy. I'm striving for happiness and peace. And that is what it is for me. Yeah.
Well, so we'll say you're ready to receive that abundance of happiness and peace next year. Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, Joy M. Hutton, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us and sharing, some things about you. You hinted as to what the results of Ready to Love will be for you.
Did I?
So we'll see. I'm not going to say anything.
What did I hint to? I don't think I did. I don't think I did.
But we'll see, because we'll see, right?
Yes.
So I'm definitely looking forward to watching the episode on New Year's Day, which is when this one will
this Friday.
Yeah. And so the episode will be live on Friday as well. So
Okay.
so just so you know, you are kicking off season 2 and 2021 for me. So thank
Awesome.
you.
Okay, good. Happy January 1st.
Right, exactly. So
Yes.
again, thank you so much. I love what you're doing. I love what you're
Thank
doing
you.
for others. You are definitely, an example of how women can be on reality TV.
Yes.
you
Right.
know,
Right. Yes. I think so. I'm
right?
just like, is this rare or something? Like, this is crazy.
I think so. If you watched any reunions last night, but
Uh,
anyway,
oh
anyway,
boy.
yeah,
Yes.
it's a beautiful thing. So I appreciate everything that you're doing, how you're pouring into others, and then also how literally you're going to pour into others when you open up that wine bar.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be pouring into their cups,
Okay.
their glasses.
Yeah. So real quickly, so what is your favorite wine?
My favorite wine is Pinotage, and that is a South African blend. It's
Okay.
native to South Africa, and it is absolutely my favorite wine. And outside of a Pinotage, I like a good Beaujolais, also in the Gamay family. So yeah, I'm a red girl. I
Mm.
like my whites, but I'm more of a red girl, and I like whiskey too.
Okay, and then those are dry, right? Or
Yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And see, I'm
Yeah.
sweet. So
Okay.
everything I drink is sweet. Coffee, you look pop
Yeah.
or soda.
Yes, I call it
Everything
pop.
wine.
I'm from
Oh,
Chicago.
okay. Chicago says pop as well. I didn't know.
Yes.
Okay. But they
Yes.
probably trying to convert you in Houston, right? Trying to
You
make you
know, of
say
course
Coke
they
or
do, but I'm
soda.
like pop. Y'all know what I'm talking
Exactly.
about.
I love it. So thank you so very much. Enjoy the rest of
Yes.
your day. And
Thank
absolutely,
you.
my prayer for you is that
Yes, and
abundance
same
of
to you.
happiness and peace in 2021.
Yes, absolutely. And sending prayers to you as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Goodbye.
Bye.
So, an intimate conversation with women of color listeners. What did you think about today's episode? Did you enjoy the conversation between Joy and I? Did it inspire you to get motivated for 2021? What are you ready to do? Personally, I'm ready to love. I'm ready to be open to love, open to receiving it and giving it. And I'm ready to soar. So to continue taking things to the next level. What are you ready to do? Feel free to drop a message, email me, leave a voice message, however, to connect with me on social media. I'm interested in your 2021. And as always, continue to listen, subscribe, and share. My goal is to reach millions of women of color, to inspire them, motivate them, elevate them. And in order to do so, I need your help in reaching them. So thank you again for being a listener of an intimate conversation with women of color.